My name is Audrey Winslow. I am 36 years old. My brother asked me not to make things weird at our family reunion. So my family seated me near the edge of the yard, where no one important would notice me. 10 minutes later, his girlfriend's mother stood up and introduced me to my own family. I work as a pediatric communication specialist at a small therapy clinic outside Charlotte. My specialty is selective mutism and anxiety-based speech refusal, which means I work with children who can speak but, for reasons their bodies have decided are reasons, will not. They are not stubborn, they are not slow, they have not been spoiled. They are afraid in a particular way that has chosen silence as a safer place than the world they are being asked to enter. My job is to help them find a way out of that safety without taking their safety from them. I have been doing this work for 12 years. This is Rose Untold Stories. If anyone in your life ever decided you were too quiet to matter and then asked why you would not speak up, this one is for you. There is something you should know before this story goes any further, because it matters for everything that comes after. I was once one of those children. When I was 7, I stopped talking outside of my house. It happened slowly. A bad year. A teacher who singled me out. A grandparent's death. I did not know how to fit inside myself. By the spring of 2nd grade, was not speaking to anyone at school. I was not speaking at the grocery store. I was not speaking at family dinners with anyone outside my immediate family. I came home and I talked to my mother in the kitchen, and then I did not talk again until the next morning. This continued for almost 2 years. My family did not handle it well. My mother, Sharon, treated my silence as a behavior I was choosing to embarrass her with. She told me, in her careful voice, that I was making the family look strange. She told my aunts and uncles, when they asked, that I was just being shy. Then she would whisper to my father David in the kitchen later that she did not know what to do with a child who would not speak. My father did not say anything. My father has not said anything about my silence since I was 7 years old. My older brother Tyler, who was 11 when I went quiet, used to call me mute. He used the word like a nickname. I do not think he meant it the way it landed. I think he meant it the way a boy who could not understand his sister might mean it. But the word stayed in the family vocabulary for a long time. My mother corrected it twice and then stopped correcting it. The person who saved me was not my family. Her name was Mrs. Carter. She was the school counselor at my elementary school. She was in her late 50s. She had short gray hair and a small office at the back of the building with a window that looked at a field. She had figured out by the 2nd month of my 3rd grade year that I would write things on paper that I would not say out loud. She bought me a small spiral notebook with a blue cover. She told me she would meet with me 3 times a week for as long as it took, and that I did not have to say a single word. I sat in her office for hours over the course of 2 years. I wrote sentences, I wrote paragraphs, I wrote things I would not have said to my own mother. She read what I wrote. She wrote back to me in the same notebook. Sometimes she asked me questions. Sometimes she just nodded. She never pushed. She never told me to use my words. She never told me to try harder. In the spring of 4th grade, I asked her a question out loud. It came out small. She did not make a fuss. She just answered me. That was the door. I started speaking again over the next 8 months, the way a person comes back into a country they have been away from for a long time. Slowly. With an accent. Watching for which rooms were safe. By the end of 5th grade, one was speaking at school. By the end of middle school, I was speaking everywhere I wanted to speak. By high school, I was who I had been before. Mostly, except for one thing. I did not feel safe in my own family anymore. Later, I earned my master's degree in child development and communication disorders. I completed my clinical certification. And I built my entire career around children who reminded me of the child I had once been. I work in a small clinic outside Charlotte that specializes in selective mutism, communication delays, and anxiety-based speech refusal. I am not a doctor. I am not the kind of professional my family would have known how to brag about at dinner. But I am the person schools call when a child has stopped speaking outside the home. I am the person pediatricians send families to when every ordinary answer has already failed. I have a waiting list that runs almost 6 months. I have co-authored 2 clinical articles. I have trained school teams in 3 counties. I have spoken at regional conferences for pediatric providers, speech therapists, and school counselors. In the small world of pediatric communication in this part of the state, I am somebody. My family does not know any of this. My mother thinks I help out at a children's clinic. My father knows I work with children who have trouble speaking, but he has never asked what that means. My brother has told his friends, more than once, that I work as a classroom aide. He has done this because he has been pretending for 20 years that the sister he had as a child did not become the sister he has as an adult. Tyler is 39. He works in commercial real estate. He drives a car that costs more than my graduate degree did. He has been engaged twice and not married either time. He has, since he was a teenager, organized his life around the question of how people in the room are looking at him. He is very good at this work. It is the only work he does without complaining. About 6 weeks before our family's annual Memorial Day reunion, Tyler called me. He told me he was bringing his new girlfriend, Megan. He had been dating her for about a year. He had not introduced her to the family yet. He told me that this year was important. Megan was someone he was serious about. Her parents, Barbara and Daniel, would also be there. They were people he wanted to make a good impression on. He told me he wanted to ask me something as a favor. I told him I was listening. He told me, in the voice he used when he was about to ask me to be smaller for him, that he needed me not to make things weird this weekend. I asked him what he thought I would do to embarrass him. He said he did not know. He just wanted to make sure I would not bring it up in front of Megan's family. I asked him what it was. He paused. He said he meant the work I did, the way I sometimes talked about the children at my clinic, the fact that I spent my days with quote-unquote difficult kids. He said Megan's parents were professional people. He said he did not want them getting the wrong impression. I asked him what impression that would be. He said he just wanted a smooth weekend. I did not say anything for a moment. Then I told him I would not be bringing it up. I hung up the phone. I drove to my parents' country house the next Saturday. My parents have a small country house. They bought it 23 years ago. It sits back from the road on a long driveway, with a wide porch and a side yard, where they put up a tent and tables every Memorial Day. My mother makes the list. My father grills. The reunion usually brought in about 30 people. Cousins, aunts, uncles, and a few neighbors who had been around long enough to count as family. This year there were 3 extra guests. Megan. Megan's mother, Barbara. Megan's father, Daniel. I arrived a little before noon. I parked behind my cousin's truck at the end of the driveway and walked up to the house with a covered dish in my hands. The dish was a corn salad I had made the night before, my contribution to the food. My mother met me on the porch. She kissed me on the cheek, briefly, in the way she had been kissing me on the cheek for 20 years. She told me I looked nice. She took the corn salad. She told me Tyler was inside, introducing Megan and her parents to the family. She told me to come say hello. I went inside. The living room was full. Tyler was standing near the fireplace with a woman in a pale green dress. She had her hand on his arm. She was perhaps 32 or 33, with long brown hair and the kind of soft, watchful smile that some women learn when they have been engaged to the wrong man before. Next to her were 2 people in their early 60s. The woman had gray hair in a neat bob and wore a navy linen dress. The man had glasses and a tweed sport coat and was holding a glass of water like a person who did not drink at family events. Tyler introduced them. He introduced me as his sister. He did not say what I did. He said, "This is my sister Audrey. She lives in Charlotte." Barbara said it was nice to meet me. Daniel shook my hand. Megan smiled at me directly and held the smile longer than her boyfriend did. Tyler moved them away from me almost immediately. He said he wanted Megan's parents to meet his grandfather, who was on the back porch. I stood in the living room for a moment. My mother came over. She told me, in the lowered voice she used when she was about to do something she had already decided to do, that the seating outside had been arranged. She had put me at the second table, almost by the outside door, away from the people she wanted to impress. She said she had told everyone I would prefer it. My father was standing close enough to hear her. He did not correct her. He did not tell her to move my place card. He just looked toward the grill and let it happen. She said it as though she were doing me a kindness. I went outside. The yard was set with 2 long tables under the tent. The front table had my mother's good china and the people she wanted to impress. The back table had the everyday plates, the distant relatives, the children nearby, and me. My place card sat at the far end, closest to the garden gate. It said Audrey. I sat down. I poured myself a glass of water. I tried not to feel what I was feeling. The little girl who had learned to keep her mouth closed. The daughter who had been told to sit near the edge of the yard because she somehow made the room feel uneven. The dinner started at 1. My mother brought out trays. Tyler gave a small toast at the front table, thanking the family for welcoming Megan and her parents. He said it loud enough that the back table could hear it, but not loud enough to make it feel like the back table was being included in it. Megan smiled politely. Barbara and Daniel nodded. I ate my salad. I talked to my distant aunt on my left about her tomato garden. I talked to my older cousin on my right about a renovation he was planning. I was, by every social measure of the day, doing exactly what I had been asked to do. I was not embarrassing my brother. I noticed Barbara looking at me. She was at the front table, 3 seats away from her daughter. She was eating slowly. She was looking at me with the kind of attention that an older woman who has been watching rooms her whole life pays to something she has noticed and not yet named. She turned to my mother and asked something I could not hear. My mother answered without turning her head fully. I read my mother's lips. She said, "That's Audrey. She lives in Charlotte. She works with children." Barbara looked at me again. She set down her fork. She got up from her chair. She walked across the tent. She did not hurry. She did not announce herself. She walked along the side of the back table until she reached the empty chair next to me. She put her hand on the back of it. She asked me, quietly, if she could sit down for a moment. I told her of course. She sat. She introduced herself again, more carefully this time. She told me her name was Barbara and that she was Megan's mother. She asked me what kind of work I did with children. I told her. She did not say anything for almost 10 seconds. She told me her grandson Lucas had been part of a communication program at a small clinic outside Charlotte 4 years ago. She told me he had not been speaking outside the home for almost 2 years before he came. She told me he was 12 now. She told me he had given a class presentation last month on the migration patterns of monarch butterflies. She asked me, very quietly, if I had been the specialist who worked with him. I told her I was. She put her hand on my arm. Her eyes filled and then steadied. Her hand on my arm shook just slightly. She told me she had always hoped she would meet the woman who had helped her grandson find his voice again. The clinic had a policy about personal contact with former families, and Barbara had respected it. She had sent a thank you note through the office years ago, but we had never met in person. She told me she had not made the connection until she had walked over here. Tyler had introduced me as his sister Audrey, who lived in Charlotte. He had not said my last name. Lucas's case notes had used my full professional name, Audrey Winslow. She had needed to look at my face and hear me say what I did before she understood what was happening at that table. She told me she was sorry it had taken her this long. I told her she did not owe me an apology. She stood up. She did not go back to her seat. She turned to face the front table. Barbara did not raise her voice. She did not need to. She was the kind of woman who, when she stood and turned toward a room, did not require volume to make the room turn toward her. The conversations at the front table tapered off. My mother looked up from her plate. My father set his fork down. Tyler noticed that Megan's mother was standing on the wrong side of the tent and started to rise from his chair to find out what was wrong. By then, nearly 30 relatives had gone quiet under the tent. Barbara spoke first. She said, "I would like to introduce someone properly." She walked back to the back table. She put her hand on my chair. She told me, quietly, to come stand with her. I am not a person who likes to stand at the front of rooms. I had spent 2 years of my childhood standing only in the back of rooms because the front had been too loud. But the woman who had asked me was the grandmother of a child I had spent 2 years walking out of a different kind of silence with, and I owed her enough to stand up when she asked me to. I stood. I walked with her to the front of the tent. She took my hand gently and did not let go. She turned to the gathered family. Her voice was steady. She told the room she wanted to say something about the woman next to her. She told them my name, my full name. She told them my professional title. She told them I was not just someone who worked with children. I was one of the people families were sent to when their children had stopped speaking and everyone else had run out of answers. She told them I had helped build a communication program that gave children like Lucas a way back into the world. She told them her grandson Lucas had not spoken outside the family home for almost 2 years before he came to my clinic. She said Lucas's parents had given her permission to share that much because they had spent 4 years telling their own family that the clinic had changed their son's life. She told them his mother and father had tried everything the standard system had to offer. She told them they had been told, by more than one specialist, that the family should prepare for the possibility that Lucas would never speak in public again. Then she told them Lucas was 12 now, and that last month he had stood in front of a 6th grade classroom and explained the migratory cycle of a butterfly for 10 minutes. She paused. Then she looked at my mother. She told her she had not understood, when she walked over to the back table, why this woman had been seated so far from the rest of the family. She told my mother she did not need to understand it now. She turned and looked at Tyler. She told him she had spent the morning hearing him talk about family, reputation, and making a good impression. Then she told him she had not heard him mention the one person at this reunion who had actually changed her family's life. She told him she now understood why. The tent was very quiet. Daniel stood up next. He apologized for interrupting. He said he had not planned to speak. He told the room he was a pediatric ear, nose, and throat specialist at the regional children's hospital, and that a significant part of his work involved children with speech and communication challenges. Then he looked at me. For 3 years, he said, I have been sending families to the communication program Audrey helped build. He looked back at the table. The children I send there, he said, are usually the ones everyone else has already given up on. Then he sat down. I was standing at the front of the tent next to Barbara. I had not said a word in 5 minutes. I had not needed to. I looked at my mother. She was holding her napkin in her lap with both hands. She was looking at the table. Her face had gone the color of paper. I looked at my father. For the first time since I was 7 years old, my father was looking back at me. Not past me. Not through me. At me. He had set down his fork. He had folded his hands. He was looking at his daughter the way a person looks at a stranger they have just met and would like to know. I looked at Tyler. Tyler was not looking at anyone. He was looking at his glass. Megan stood up. She did not move to the front of the tent. She stayed at her chair. She turned slightly toward Tyler. She spoke at a volume that was meant for him, but that everyone within 20 feet could hear because nobody else was speaking. She told him quietly that he had told her he did not have much of a relationship with his sister. She told him he had not told her his sister was that Audrey. She told him she would like to talk to me tomorrow morning, if I had the time. Then she sat back down. The dinner did not end. It continued in a different shape. People spoke more carefully. Nobody quite knew where to look. My mother did not come over. My father came over near the end of the dinner. He did not speak. He stood next to me for a long moment. He put his hand on my shoulder, very briefly, the way a man touches his daughter when he is trying to remember how to be her father. Then he walked away. Tyler did not come over at all. The next morning, Megan came to my parents' guest cottage, where I had been sleeping. She asked if I would take a walk with her. We walked the long gravel driveway down to the road and back. She did not say much at first. She apologized for not knowing. She told me Tyler had spent a year describing me in ways that did not match the woman she had met yesterday afternoon. She told me she did not know yet what she was going to do with that. I did not push her. She was a woman thinking about her life. I had nothing to add to her thinking. When we got back to the cottage, she hugged me. She told me she would call me. She walked back to the main house. I packed my things and I drove home that afternoon. Megan called me the following week. We had lunch. We had lunch a second time the following month. She is the closest thing to a sister I have ever had. She and Tyler are no longer together. It did not end in one dramatic conversation. It ended slowly, as she watched him fail again and again to become a man who could explain why he had hidden his own sister. My mother called me about 3 months after the reunion. She told me she was sorry. She used the word sorry 6 times in 20 minutes. She did not say what she was sorry for. I let her talk. When she was done, I told her something I had been waiting most of my life to say. I told her, "I told you. In every way I knew how. You just decided I wasn't worth listening to." She did not have an answer for that. I do not think she has had one yet. We talk now, once or twice a month. The conversations are short. We are not close. I have decided I am allowed not to be close to her after this much time, and that she does not get to ask for closeness she did not give. My father wrote me a letter 4 months after the reunion. The letter was 3 sentences long. It was written in his careful handwriting on a single sheet of plain paper. It said, "I saw you on Memorial Day. I had not been seeing you for a long time. I am sorry I did not before. He did not ask for anything. He did not explain." I kept the letter in the drawer of my desk for a year before I wrote back to him. When I did, my response was also 3 sentences. I told him I had received his letter. I told him I had needed it. I told him I would visit him in the spring. I have visited him 3 times now. We sit on the porch. We do not talk a great deal. He asks me about my work. He listens. Who in your life decided you were too quiet to matter, and then stopped looking for the version of you they had missed? Drop your story in the comments. I want to know who is here with me tonight, and what city you are watching from. The blue spiral notebook Mrs. Carter gave me when I was little is still on a shelf in my office. I have carried it through every season of my life. The pages are soft now. The cover has faded almost white. About 6 months after the reunion, I had a new child in the program. Her name was Elsie. She was 9 years old. She had not spoken outside her own house in a little over a year. Her mother sat in the corner of my office and held her own hands. Elsie sat in the chair across from me and did not look up. I did not ask her to speak. I sat with her quietly. We did this for 3 sessions. On the 4th session, I took the blue notebook off my shelf. I held it for a moment in my hands. I had kept it because it had been the thing that saved me. I had not given it to anyone. I had thought I never would. I handed it to her. "It's yours now," I said. "You don't have to say a single word. There's a pencil in the desk drawer if you want to write something." Then I added, "I'll be here every Thursday for as long as it takes." She held the notebook with both hands. She turned it over. She opened the cover. She closed it again. She looked at me. She did not speak that day. She did not speak at the next session either. 1 month later, Elsie asked me a question out loud. It came out small. I did not make a fuss. I answered her. If Audrey's story stayed with you, please like and subscribe. Every week, we share emotional stories about people who were overlooked, underestimated, and pushed aside, until the day they finally found the strength to speak for themselves. A 9-year-old who had not spoken in a year said my name in my office on a Thursday afternoon, like it was the easiest thing she had ever done.